sir. Thank you, sir.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Pankaj. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. Good evening.
Hi, Pankaj. Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Peter. Good evening.
Good evening. As I heard, you're doing good. We're trying to do the same in Delhi.
Well, I'm not in Delhi, fortunately, now.
No, I said we are trying to do good in
Achha,
Delhi.
you're trying to do it in Delhi.
Yeah, we are right successful with doing good, but the rest of Delhi seems not, as group captain mentioned.
Which part of Delhi are you in now?
That is Shantiniketan. That is, I think it's part of South. It belongs West End, Shantiniketan. If need be, almost walking distance to the airport. It take 2-3 hours.
I stay at the east part.
Good evening, Mr. Peter. Group Captain Venkat here.
Evening, group.
Good evening, Pankaj sir.
Hi, Venkat ji. कैसे हैं?
Fine, sir. Thank you.
Yes, we are. Just now, Mr. Gujral called up to say that net is not coming. Otherwise, he said he'll come on audio. Let's hope how it works. Mr. Madhavan said,
where is he calling? From where he is getting connected? Gujarat?
somewhere hills up north, actually.
Oh, he is not in Delhi.
Not in Delhi. He's still trying. Otherwise, he said he'll come on a hand phone. Nothing else. He said he'll come and use the audio of the hand phone. Let's see how it works.
No, is it that facility is available in India for Zoom to come getting connected through hand phone?
Yeah, no facility like that. We'll create that one.
Okay.
From my phone, I'll put it on the speaker here and get it connected.
Okay,
Something
okay.
like Let's try. Mr. Madhavan is to come in now. He said he'll be coming in any moment.
I am here.
Oh, sorry. Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Madhavan. Sorry. Ramesh. I got.
Ramesh was also here.
Yes, he was here. Yes, good evening, Mr. Madhavan. Welcome. Just now I saw it actually. I was talking to Naresh. You checked in, no? Yes.
Okay.
I was talking to Naresh. He is unable to get his net connectivity. It's raining heavily there. But still, he said he will try and join. And I saw Professor Ramesh is there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, you are there, Professor Ramesh.
Yeah, Madhavan,
Yes.
I'm here.
Welcome, sir. Ramesh is there.
This is Shankar. Live streaming started. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry for
Thank
that.
you. Thank you. Now we are waiting for Premachandran. Once he comes, we will start. Another 3-4 minutes left. He will be joining us any moment now.
Okay.
Dr. Madhavan, have you met Priyadarshini? She is the executive president of Sansad Ratna Awards Committee and national president of NGPL.
Hello, sir. Good evening.
Hello, good to meet you.
We have actually got connected over an email, but not obviously. We haven't met.
We are live, gentlemen. We are live on air now. So. Yeah. Now, before our member of parliament from Kollam, Premchandran, starting, I think we'll commence the program so that I quickly brief on what's happening in MMA. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Very warm welcome to another edition of our evening program. And today is going to be a fascinating discussion. Before I call upon the panelists and introduce them, let me briefly tell you what's happening in MMA so that you don't miss them by any chance in your inbox. And tomorrow morning, it's a major program for the basically management students. Others are also more willing to join. They can do so. Leadership Excellence by Dr. Manu Vora. He is from Chairman Business Executive Business Excellence from USA Chicago. Then this is a program which we don't want to miss you. That we just finalized only 2 days back. On the 26th of this month, kindly note at 6 p.m. in the evening, the Galwan clash, the India's China strategy and China's game. So what we have got some outstanding panelists to come and discuss. Mr. G. Parsardi, former commissioner to Pakistan, Indian commissioner to Pakistan. General Dawar is a former DG Intelligence. He is going to be there. And we also have another two outstanding speakers, which will be moderated by Air Marshal Matheshan, will be moderating this session. Along with, we also have with him the outstanding speaker, Admiral Arun Prakash, who is the Chief of the Naval Staff, and Mr. Mohan Surya, who is again a great economist. He is advisor to former finance minister and also member of Rajya Sabha. So this is a very outstanding panel. We are going to have it on 26th evening at 6 o'clock, same time. Please don't miss it. And the last program which I want to tell you is about on the 27th. We have again an interesting event, financial, whereby the Pons veteran is going to be talking about how to do investment in India, what your investing advisor won't share with you. So Mr. Prasad is a former group CEO of CAMS. He's going to be talking to us. Then we also finalize all the program for the month of July. In fact, we have finalized program till December so that you can block your diary, and we have got some outstanding speaker lined up. July program already been shared with you. So the distinguished panelists are already joining us, and we'll commence the program just a while ago from now. And today's event, parliamentary democracy in COVID times. We got outstanding panelists. Mr. Premachandran, Member of Parliament, Lok Sabha from Kollam constituency. Mr. Naresh Gujaral is joining us. He is a Member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha. And Mr. G. Ramesh is the Professor of Public Policy, IIM Bangalore. And Mr. Madhavan will be moderating, co-founder, President of PRS Legislative Research. And the Premachandran is logged in already. I think I'm looking for him actually. Mr. Madhavan, we wait for a minute for Mr. Premachandran to log in.
Yeah.
He said he's logging in any moment. And I'm also waiting for Mr. Naresh Gujaral. He's got some issue with his net, but he said he will join in. Let's hope both come on board soon. Please bear with us, ladies and gentlemen. Some net issues with our Honorable Member of Parliament will be joining us any moment. One from Kerala, other one is up north. I'll request to hold on for a moment so that we'll start on time. அவர் சார் வந்தாங்க கொஞ்சம் லைன்ல சொல்றேன் எனக்கு. ஓகே கரெக்ட் இருக்காரு. ஆடியோ கனெக்ட் ஆகுது பாருங்க. கனெக்டிங் ஆடியோன்னு வருது. அவர் தானே பாரு. குட் ஈவினிங் சார். வெல்கம். குட் ஈவினிங் மிஸ்டர் பிரேமச்சந்திரன். வெல்கம். Welcome to you. So what I request, Mr. Madhavan, we'll start, and meanwhile, Naresh Gujaral is still trying to log in. Otherwise, he said he will try and log in on audio. We'll try and let me see how I can take him on board. And we'll commence the program as usual so that he will join us in the moment. Once again, very good evening to ladies and gentlemen. And as I mentioned to you, outstanding event which you all eagerly looking forward. Parliamentary democracy in COVID times. We have one of very, very high-profile distinguished panelists, Mr. Premachandran, Member of Parliament, Lok Sabha from Kollam constituency, Kerala. They are very welcome to you, sir. Mr. Naresh Gujaral, Member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha. He'll be joining us any moment because he's at the hills. He's not able to get connectivity, but he'll be joining us any moment. And Professor G. Ramesh is the Professor of Public Policy from IIM Bangalore. And Mr. M.R. Madhavan, co-founder, President of PRS Legislative thing. And we also have with us Mr. Peter Rimmel, who is President Representative of Conrad Stifting. Let me have the privilege of introducing Mr. Peter Rimmel before I call him to give the introductory remarks to share his German perspective on what's happening in German Parliament. He is currently the resident representative of Conrad Stifting office in India. Is a law degree from Freiburg University as well as a second in law. After a stint as a juris judge, lecturer, and moved to a public office, head of a division of a state Ministry of Interior. held a number of important assignments, including anti-corruption commissioner and the Republic of Indonesia. Earlier, he was also a resident representative of Conrad Stifting in Lebanon, director of Rules of Law Program in Conrad Stifting. Very warm welcome, Peter. May I request to kindly deliver the introductory remarks, please.
Yes, thank you. Honorable members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 is the hour of the executive. That is at least what a leading German magazine claimed early in the pandemic. It's a long-standing trope in German political discourse that our system is only parliamentary in nature, but in reality, the federal government and not the parliament is the beating heart of German democracy. Germany and India are probably very similar in that regard. As in both our countries, civil society is extremely sensitive to executive power. In Germany, that is based on the historical experience of a dictatorship. In India, it's perhaps the memory of the Raj and its unaccountable foreign viceroys, but maybe also more recent times. In a parliamentary system, lawmakers elect the government from their midst, meaning that the government always needs to retain the support of the House or else it will fall. Commonly, critics opine that in reality, this means that primary goal of lawmakers is to switch to the executive at the earliest possible junction. They believe that the only act of parliament that truly matters is the appointment of a government early on. After that, laws are being made in the ministries, and the National Assembly only ever acts as a rubber stamp because the governing majority fears ghastly consequences if a rift between it and its government became known. It can never be truly independent of the executive and fails to hold it account. So this is let me say, some of the stereotypes coming up. Especially during the Corona crisis, critics fear that the German parliament, the Bundestag, Bund standing for federal, comparable to the Lok Sabha, would yield powers. Can we have other speakers blocked? Would yield its powers to an overbearing executive under the pretense of a national emergency. Emergency legislation and quick government decisions were even taken as a proof that the parliament was being circumvented. We all know better than that, of course. In times of need, the government obviously must react quickly and must act quickly. But does that mean that the parliament will eschew its responsibility and not check on every decision the government made, at least afterwards? Even if laws are being proposed in the ministries and they expected to be passed by the governing coalition, that does not mean that these laws are not being amended and changed in the process, even taking into account valid criticism. Of course, that's debatable what that is, by the parliamentary opposition in the process. The parliament, our Bundestag, still pulls the strings of the federal purse. Whatever decision the cabinet made can only stand as long as the national parliament grants its finance. And I think that's one of the important keys of parliament. Parliaments have the right to the budget. It's the most powerful means of control of a government, to the right of shaping the budget. Lawmakers acted quickly and across most major parties to enact rules to allow a quick resumption of plenary and committee sessions. So that seems to be different in India, but we come back to that later. The leading politicians in the governing factions have publicly vowed that they would not waver to rescind emergency competencies once the crisis has abated. Why then? And this is already a question I would have to the Indian honorable parliamentarians. Why then is the thought of the powerless legislature so deeply ingrained into nearly all democratic societies? I believe it's a conceptual problem with parliamentarianism that is the basis for this kind of damaging assumptions. The traditional model of presidential systems is much easier to comprehend. There is the executive with its own popular mandate. In some countries, maybe it even changes to a populist mandate. And there is a legislature to comprehend. There's a legislature with its mandate to check on the executive. The interchange of personnel between the two is rare and often even prohibited, unlike in a parliamentary system where it is actively encouraged. This is perhaps difficult to understand for outsiders, as the idea of checks and balances is often understood as an antagonistic relationship between a government and the parliament. Under parliamentarism, the relationship is not so much antagonistic as it is based on harmony and compromise. This is much more difficult to portray in the media than conflict. We all should take every opportunity we find to counter this belief in the public, and as it sets a dangerous precedent from, and I'm quoting common phrases from, useless legislature, it's only a small step towards the talk shop of corrupt cronies, also things we hear. And those things need to be counteracted, I think. How dangerous this is can be seen currently in the United States or Brazil, for example. Ironically, both are examples of presidential systems, but the antagonistic relationship between executive and legislature did not help the latter. Instead, it empowered authoritarian-leaning presidents to blame the legislature for everything bad. In a confrontation between one charismatic leader and hundreds of largely anonymous MPs, the legislature is much more at a loss than it could ever be under a more harmonious parliamentary system. I've earlier talked about the beating heart of German democracy and how the federal government is often mistaken to be the heart. It is not. In Germany, the federal parliament is the center of all decisions in theory and also in practice. It's members of parliament who receive their democratic mandate from their constituencies and who have to report back to them. The executive, in turn, received its mandate from the MPs. It's beholden to them and through them to its voters. And there can be no confrontation between the executive and the legislature in this configuration. So I have, of course, spoken from a German perspective so far, but some of these elements will seem very familiar to you because they are very often comparable. Let me simply conclude my remarks with an endorsement of parliamentarism. Parliamentarians are the beating heart of democracy in Germany as much as in India. But this is not self-evident. It's a privilege, and that privilege must be earned. Well, parliament comes from speaking, but also by deeds. It must be earned again and again from the voters before every election. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to an interesting Indian insight and interesting discussions.
Thank you, Mr. Peter, for setting the context and sharing the German perspective. Now we'll go to the main discussion. Now, what I'm going to do is I'll introduce briefly the speakers, then hand it over to Mr. Madhavan. Mr. Naresh Gujral is unable to join because we have some issues with his net connectivity. He's at the hills. But notwithstanding, he has agreed to join us on audio. I will try and bring his audio so that Mr. Madhavan, when you want to seek his views, his questions, so that is the time I'll bring him on audio. Is it okay with you, Mr. Madhavan? Okay. Now let me have the privilege of introducing our distinguished panelists for this evening. Mr. Naresh Gujral is a Shiromani Akali Dal party politician and member of the Parliament, India, representing Punjab in Rajya Sabha in the upper house of the Indian Parliament. Mr. N.K. Premachandran is the Indian politician. He is presently the member of Parliament from Kollam Lok Sabha constituency. He was a former Minister of Water Resources in the government of Kerala and was responsible for irrigation, ground water development, water supply and sanitation. We have had the privilege of Premachandran talking to us in earlier one of the meeting, and we had excellent feedback. His insight is going to be a great source of inspiration for each one of us. Then Mr. Ramesh is another distinguished panelist. He's a professor of public policy from IIM Bangalore, and his teaching interests include public policy, public management, performance management, financing and regulation of infrastructure and utilities. He specializes in the sector of urban infrastructure and urban local bodies, public administration, utilities, and hospital and health insurance. He has conducted several training programs for senior officers and various civil services. Very warm welcome to you, Mr. Ramesh. And Mr. Madhavan was so kindly agreed to think, and the whole event today has been put on based on the article written by Mr. Madhavan, which I saw in Hindu. I thought it'll be very interesting to discuss on this. Mr. Madhavan is the president and co-founder of PRS Legislative Research, a public policy research institution that focuses on making the legislative process in India better informed, more transparent, and participatory. Mr. Madhavan has also a doctorate in management. He's also an MBA from IIM Calcutta. Very warm welcome to you, Mr. Madhavan, and over to you to take the discussion forward. Whenever you want, bring in Mr. Naresh Gujral, please give me a tinkle. I'm here. If you tell me, then I'll bring him on phone. Meanwhile, he's also trying to join us on net. Let's see how it works. I think he'll be able to join soon if you're lucky. Over to you, Mr. Madhavan.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Group Captain. And thank you for inviting me. And even more, thank you for taking up this topic about the importance of Parliament and how Parliament does, because this is obviously very close to my heart. So very briefly, what we do is provide research support to MPs and MLAs. And what we believe is that for a democracy, especially a parliamentary democracy, the absolute core institution that helps the country progress is the legislature, Parliament, of course, being the most important, but also the state legislatures for various issues at the state level. The reason I am saying this and the reason I wrote that article in the Hindu which you referred to is, what does Parliament do? Functionally, Parliament does three things. All the laws that are applicable in the country, and especially what's there in the union list and anything in the concurrent list, is made by Parliament. So all laws that we live under, Parliament makes. Of course, state legislatures make others. Second, and I think this is an even more important role of Parliament, is that it checks the work of the government on a daily basis. It is supposed to hold the government to account for all its actions on a daily basis. That's a very important role in a democracy, because in a parliamentary democracy, because we do not elect the executive. We elect the legislators who then decides who will be the government, and the government is accountable to us through them. So Parliament has to function for the government to have accountability to the people, and that's actually, that accountability is not only accountability, it also provides legitimacy to the government on a daily basis. So when the government acts, it acts legitimately because it's accountable to Parliament, and Parliament is saying, it's okay, you can go ahead, and we elect Parliament. And the third part is financial aspect. So the government cannot spend any money unless Parliament has sanctioned it. So this is the functional part. What else does it do? Very importantly, while it's doing this, it allows for lots of open discussion on issues. So we have members of Parliament, and India, we have been fortunate that we have actually ended up over the decades into a seriously multi-party democracy. So we have lots of parties. For example, Mr. Premachandran is the only member of his party in Parliament. So he does represent a certain view of looking at things. Every party has its own different way of looking at things. So we do get a lot of different perspectives, and that allows for discussion. And as we know that if we discuss issues, it's better to reach a more stable solution rather than decisions taken without discussion. So Parliament allows that, and it helps representation of a wide range of issues. So the question now is, what's happening in the country now? So I can see that we are facing certain extraordinary circumstances, and I can see that there are at least 3 types of crises that the country is facing at the moment. One is the health crisis because of COVID-19. We all know about that. A second is a fallout of that is the economic crisis. the economy was already slowing down. Then after this, the lockdown and various other reasons, now we are, I mean, almost everyone is expecting a negative GDP growth for this financial year. So we are in, which we have not seen, I mean, I have not seen in my lifetime. So in any structural sense other than some mathematical sense. So that's a serious crisis. And of course, a third crisis which has come over the last few weeks at the border. Now, Parliament is scheduled to meet. I mean, we actually don't have a schedule, but usually Parliament meets for the monsoon session sometime towards the 3rd or 4th week of July. They have not announced the schedule yet. I have argued that given this crisis, Parliament ought to meet earlier because extraordinary times call for extraordinary meetings. Secondly, committees are usually meeting all the time. When Parliament is not in session, committees keep meeting. Committees have not been meeting for various reasons. Partly because members of Parliament cannot come to Delhi for various, I mean, the lockdown, even transport. And when we compare, let us say, to a country like the British Parliament, most members of, in the British Parliament anyway, the largest representation is from England and most, or Wales, and most of them in a few hours can drive down to London. I can't expect Mr. Premachandran to come from Kollam to Delhi by road. He has to take a flight. And that has its own risks and its own issues. So we are geographically a large country which poses its own challenges. But nevertheless, I just did a quick look and an update. So the Inter-Parliamentary Union, and I would recommend anyone who's interested to look up the ipu.org website. They have a small article on their website, which they update regularly, which covers how all their member countries, our parliaments are meeting during this pandemic. There's an article there. And it's in alphabetical order. But if you search for INDIA, it is missing. So there is no article on India for obvious reason, because Indian Parliament has not met at all and the committees have not met. So quickly, UK, I mean, I'm starting with UK because it's the mother parliament. They started with a hybrid model. What they said was they'll have social distancing in the house and they will have large cameras and large TV screens, and members are can log in and they put in a secure video conferencing system. Now they have started meeting. Committees are doing video conferencing. Canada had a remote meeting. Canada has created a special committee on COVID where every MP is a member of that committee looking at COVID related stuff. And that committee meets regularly on video conferencing. France, I'm taking some of the countries where the pandemic has been very heavily hit. France, they are doing something called reduced meetings. So they are not taking all issues. They're taking only some issues. They're taking 10 questions and only the members asking the questions as well as the ministers and presidents of parties will attend. But still there is some accountability going on. Their committees are meeting on video conferencing. Italy, similarly, remote meetings or committees and limited meetings. And remember, Italy had huge amount of fatalities and issues with that. Japan, again, lots of cases, meeting with protection measures, both plenary and committees. South Korea, similar. Switzerland, they have done an interesting thing. To do social distancing, their house was not small enough, so they moved to a convention center. So I'll say in parallel, well, if our parliament doesn't have a room large enough, central hall large enough to have 545 MPs with social distancing, well, can we move to something else? I mean, an NDMC conference.
Parliament must meet for 100 days. And if Parliament is disrupted by, say, 10 days, then there is an automatic extension to the session. That would prevent members from disrupting the House. If you would recall, when we got our independence, the Parliament was meeting almost for about 50 days.
Sure.
And gradually it came down to 80-85 days. So that was my point at that time, that Parliament must meet for a certain number of days. Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Yeah. You were saying something?
No, sir, we are listening to you. We can hear you.
Hello.
We can hear you.
He's waiting for your second question or something.
Your second question.
So I'm saying that, of course, at that time, the bill got defeated. But again, whether Parliament meets for 100 days or 120 days, that we can debate later on. Right now, during this pandemic, the question is, even if we meet, I'm saying 50 days, but we must meet. As I said, the number of hours in a day can be increased. Parliament can start at 10 o'clock, it can end at 8 o'clock. We can put in effectively 10 hours. We can find a place where we can physically meet. As I said, we have very large indoor air-conditioned stadiums in Delhi where you can keep the social distancing. Similarly, the Raj Sabha can meet in the central hall or in the Lok Sabha, keeping social distancing. But yes, to say that it's not possible, to my mind, is not correct.
Thank you, sir. And I'll just ask you a second question because I know the connectivity issues you have. You have been the chairman of the standing committee, etc. So, especially for the audience, it might be useful to explain the importance of these committees in maintaining accountability and looking at bills, looking at demand for grants, etc.
But I think the committees serve a very, very pivotal function in Parliament. Actually, that is where the real work happens, where we rise above party lines and we talk of national interest. And that is where we hold the government accountable, the executive accountable, and that is where good suggestions come up and are sometimes that leads to legislation. Also, every bill which comes before Parliament should normally go through these committees. And I would say in about 60-70% of the cases, they do come through committees where members are able to make very valuable suggestions. So it plays a very important role, and that's what I am saying. There are committees, important committees, like Public Accounts Committee. I'm a member of Public Accounts Committee, and the meeting has been called next week in Delhi. Now, I don't know how many people at this stage would be willing to attend, because the feeling that I'm getting from many of my colleagues is that right now, Delhi being what it is, they are scared to come. However, a meeting, definitely a virtual meeting, can be held. And because there the total number is about 30 odd. And the subcommittees are also there. So that must happen. I read somewhere that the government was fearful that it may not remain totally secret. Quite frankly, I don't understand why the proceedings of these committees should be secret. Because whether it's in the UK or US, these are all in the public domain. I mean, we are not discussing any national secrets there. So I see no harm in having virtual meetings of these committees, because committees like Public Accounts Committee, the Finance Committee, the Foreign Affairs Committee, the Defense Committee, right now, they have a very important role to play. Given the state of the economy, given the fact that we have huge job losses, given the fact that the fiscal discipline will go for a toss, the Finance Committee has a pivotal role. The Foreign Affairs Committee has a very important role given the situation with China. Public Accounts Committee and COPU, Committee for Public Undertaking, always had a very important role. Now, these committees have not met for months together. So I think some way has to be found to have virtual meetings of these committees.
Thank you, sir. I don't know how long you can be on the line because of this network issue. But this was very, very insightful and useful. Thank you, sir. Can I ask a one question? Which is, so
would you like to listen? So I'll keep you hooked to the.
So, Professor Ramesh, like Canada, I know, I have read that they have 328 members in their parliament, in their lower house, and when they did the virtual meeting, 288 out of 328 actually participated.
Yeah.
And I have a couple of connected questions.
Yeah.
Yes, we know that, I mean, we have actually networked all, I think, all the district collectors, officers, districts, etc. And those are, and it should not be, at least my guess is, for most MPs, wherever they live in the constituency, going to the district collector's office should not be too much of a challenge. Not be too far off, they can drive down. So is it possible technologically to actually use this network and do meetings? And anyway, when Parliament meets in plenary, not in committees, it's telecast live, so there is no question of secrecy anyway. Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha TV are always live, so you don't have an issue. So A, that, and second question is, suppose we manage this. As Mr. Gujral said, this is an indefinite thing. I mean, COVID is not, Parliament last met on March 23rd. They have to constitutionally, before September 23, they have to meet. And it is not going to go away before September 23. We know that. So there has to be some solution found. But suppose a technological solution is found to get some of these things done. Do you actually see, as an academic, as a public policy academic, way we function our democracy actually changing, in the sense, can we have more frequent meetings of Parliament where there are meetings in Delhi, but there are also what we call now intersession period. There are occasional meetings which are held remotely. Can the remote technology be harnessed to do more committee meetings? Can actually this make Parliament a more effective body?
Okay, can you respond?
Yeah,
thank you. I mean, I was listening to them very, very intently, and I was wondering what is it I can say when two parliamentarians are speaking on parliamentary democracy. At the outset, I would like to say that we have what I can say, that we do have democracy. Because there is anywhere social media, this, that, and Mr. Prem Chandran or Mr. Gujral, they're 24/7 parliamentarians. And they'll be speaking, writing, and they are being quoted, they are being cited everywhere like that. But Parliament, yes, it has not met for 3 months. Okay, and we do have this, what I can say, maybe a virtual democracy. Second thing I would like to say is that, yes, I mean, actually it's not, I mean, if the government put its heads together, it can find a solution. It's not a problem at all. One small suggestion I would like to give is that people above 60 should be taken care. Okay, that's something which is emerging across countries everywhere. But the younger MPs definitely, Mr. Prem Chandran and all, I mean, he's experienced but young. Okay, so that's not an issue. But the point is that, like you say, places can be secured. See, we are conducting exams all over India, okay, wherever we want, and those are all under secured conditions and safe conditions and like that. I have one small issue which could be bothering the government in the beginning. I mean, there's no justification for not doing it now, but in the first 2 months, is that when the Parliament meets and committees meet, the government departments really get into frenzied working, okay? And many of them are really preparing the notes, questions, answers, and speeches and like that. So there's a lot of work I've seen in government happening, but government itself under lockdown. It's not only the Parliament, even they have been working probably directors and above, and initially it was JS and above like that. Probably they could not have really, met those workload, that be responsive to the questions and all that. But by now they should have really had all this in place, actually, the technology and then the LEDs and all those things are possible. It could have been really done. And so that's, I don't think is a big issue. And if they're meeting, yes, I mean, wherever physically meeting, again, it's not 200 parliamentarians. I'm sure they'll be backed by another 1,000 other people supporting the whole secretariat. and they all come from all over Delhi and like that, and they do run a risk. So it's a call which the parliamentarians should collectively take. And I'm also puzzled, like why doesn't the assemblies don't meet? Assemblies are also, I mean, equally handling all the, in fact, a lot of it's a state department work also, and why they are not meeting like that. So they can come up with some solutions, like probably the key departments now under crisis, they can meet, but they are also busy with their work, like finance or health or home. Those probably they can have some short meetings, or the parliament, each party can say daily they can sponsor 10 people from their members who can go meet and come, rest on online. All those things can be sorted out if they really put their heads together. But frankly speaking, sir, listening to the MP, I was under the impression committee would have started meeting. Incidentally, that's what the public would be really feeling now, okay? Because for the committees to meet, I don't see much of an issue at all, because we are all board meetings, we are meeting. Of course, it's not as serious as a parliamentary meeting, but we are having board meetings for the banks and various other meetings which are going online. And in fact, it's more productive today, and lot more attendance, more focused discussions and like that. Okay, so it's bringing a lot of discipline into the whole system. In fact, the online one. And so, what's the second question you said? Yeah. So it will. Hello.
Yeah. So the question was, how do you see things progressing ahead in case we find technology solution?
Correct. So, in fact, even if, let's say there is no corona tomorrow, okay, even then parliamentarians may decide, Mr. Premchandran may decide, let's have the committee meeting over the net. If they get really habituated, that's what is happening now. There are more and more people joining board meetings probably through the virtual like that. So they should really prepare this, because that will be a lot more productive. And I was telling you yesterday that if you got the online, and the entire support system of the government will be behind when the ministers are speaking and MPs are speaking, they can refer it to their systems. And we find it is much more productive even in our own meetings when it is online like that. So to begin with, I think some activities may shift online even post-corona. And with corona, yes, I mean, they have to mentally start preparing it. Only one thing which we have, which they could be feeling is that what happens in the parliament when 500 people there's a huge chemistry that is there. Okay. So if you put the social distance, and then if you restrict the numbers, if you say alternate days and all that, they have to again recreate those chemistries. I mean, on a lighter sense, like for example, walking into the well, let's say. Okay. Now those things, you may not be able to do now. I mean, because of the social distancing norms and like that. But otherwise, I mean, I think Mr. Premchandran should insist that committee should start meeting immediately. Okay, there is enough system to handle that everywhere. And parliaments, once they decide, I mean, with some restrictions, definitely they can start. And post-corona, probably more and more it may shift to this mode also. Who knows? Yeah. Thank you, Madhavan.
Thank you. I'll actually ask Mr. Premchandran one question before opening up. And at least in parliament circles that I know of, he is known as, I mean, if you lose the Lok Sabha rule book, and if Mr. Premchandran is around, you don't need the rule book. He knows every rule. So, I'll ask him, especially since Mr. Gujral had a suggestion related to that, which is from my understanding, and I just opened the constitution to check, which says that Article 85 says the president shall from time to time summon each house of parliament to meet at such time and place as he thinks fit. So it does not even say New Delhi. It says such time and place. And Lok Sabha rule book, my understanding is, says it shall meet in the parliamentary premises, but the speaker has the power to change that and to define parliamentary premises. So like to take Mr. Gujral's suggestion, if Lok Sabha were to meet at Talkatora Stadium and the speaker says that for the next 3 months parliamentary premises includes Talkatora, will that be a viable possible? Do the rules allow that to happen? Sir, if you can unmute yourself. Sir, you're on mute. The camera went off.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. It's a very interesting question because as per Article 85, the way by which the President of India summoned the House, summoned the Parliament, the time and place which as decided. See, but as per the rules of procedure, you are absolutely correct. It is within the parliamentary premises. So definitely, I think that I'm not sure about the provision, but definitely the Speaker and the Parliament should come to a consensus as to the regarding, suppose if there is a change of place of having the Parliament to meet, definitely the change of place has to be mentioned in the summons itself. Because normally, as per the rules of practice, the Parliament is being convened in the Parliament premises, in the chamber of Lok Sabha and in the chamber of Rajya Sabha respectively. So there is no need to mention the specific place where the Parliament to meet, because as per the rules of practice, it is in the chamber of the Lok Sabha and the chamber of the Rajya Sabha. Suppose if we want to change it, I think that as per the provision which you have already read, as per Article 85, there is no need of any, there is no legal lacuna in it, there is no difficulty in it, there is no technicality. Only the President of India, in consultation with the Speaker, has to state the place and the time by which the House will be summoned, I think, because of your observation. So there is no problem in it. But as far as meeting of this, I think that in having online meetings or the Zoom meetings or by the video conferencing, by using the innovative technologies, I think that the rules have to be looked into, because there is no specific rule by which the Parliamentary Standing Committee can be made through online, or the Parliament can be having with such number of attendance. Definitely the rules of procedure and conduct in Lok Sabha has to be amended or has to be changed. That is the problem. I think the Speaker is always not giving any permission, because I think that so many parliamentary standing committees and the financial committees, their chairmen have already written to the Honorable Speaker, allowing them to have, even the PSC committee, Public Accounts Committee, has written a letter to the Honorable Speaker, allow them to convene the meeting or allow them to have the meeting through online system. But unfortunately, so far the Speaker has not given permission. I think that there is no rule specifically permitting the Speaker to give sanction to meet the committee through the system. Yes, absolutely, the inherent powers are there with the Speaker by the provision, the last provision of the rule book. There is a specific provision, inherent provision is there. By using the inherent provision, because of the extraordinary situation prevailing in the country, not only in the country, throughout the globe, because of the pandemic situation, I think that the inherent powers can be, the Honorable Speaker can invoke the inherent powers by which suppose he can give a direction and subsequent changes, if any is required, definitely we have to make the changes. I think that in the practical sense, how because of the pandemic situation, we are not meeting all the, see, as per the procedure, as per the regulations in this consultative committee, the consultative committee meet at least once in 3 months. That is a specific direction is there, but unfortunately we are not meeting. So in such a situation, I think the Speaker is having the authority to make some or invoke the inherent powers so as to have the meetings, and subsequently that has to be ratified by the Parliament and the rules has to be amended accordingly. I think that is a practicable thing which we can do for the time being. Thank you.
Mr. Madhavan, Ramesh Gujral is still online. He's been listening to all the conversations. Would you like to put a question to him before we let go? Otherwise, there are a number of questions that come from YouTube and Facebook. Once you let me know.
So if you let's take those questions and I'll direct them to Mr. Gujral and to Mr. Premchandran.
Yeah, maybe one question to Mr. Gujral. We'll do it. Mr. Gujral, there are a lot of questions that come. I will address the first question to you from our YouTube viewer. Will not the webinar sessions deny the tech illiterate legislator the chance to participate in the proceedings, which is what parliamentary democracy is all about? How do you, make this shortcoming in terms of technology versus the people who are qualified, get the technology what is required for a good session, sir? Over to you, sir.
Every member of Parliament has been given a private secretary. The government pays for it. That private secretary has to be computer savvy. So I don't think this is going to be a major challenge. The main challenge, as I said earlier, is can you put together any kind of technology where 540 people can participate? To me, that looks very difficult. For committees, there should be no problem at all. And as board meetings are taking place every day, I think committees can also meet. So, and as far as where Parliament has to meet, please do remember that the framework of our constitution could never have envisaged a situation like this. So obviously, whether it was the first Parliament in which rules were made, when this kind of a thing was not even on the horizon, how could they even think of a calamity like this coming before the nation in the future? So today, I think if the cabinet was to suggest or recommend to the president has the power to change the rules. And later on, it can be ratified when Parliament meets. But as I said again, Parliament must meet.
Super, sir. Mr. Madhavan, there's one more question which we want to give it to both members of Parliament, which has come from
Yes,
again.
go ahead.
Yeah. The question is, do you think the nation is ready technology-wise? At the end of the day, members should not complain that they could not vote on a bill or a resolution because the internet's trapped. What's your view on that? Over to you, Mr. Naresh Gujral. Then I think Mr. Premachandran will answer after that.
As I said, there would be all these are challenges. It's the first time this kind of a thing would happen anywhere in the world. So obviously, but there has to be, it has to be tried because, as I said, COVID has no end date. Till such time when a vaccine is found, this will continue. So are we saying that now, for example, this Parliament has 4 years to go, and if a vaccine is not found for the next 4 years, will we go on like this? Then where is the democracy? Then it is just the rule of the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. The members of Parliament do not count in that case. Government has no accountability in that case. They can keep on passing ordinances after ordinances and rule the country. Is that the way forward?
Super, sir. Mr. Madhavan, now you could see the question on chat box. Once we finish that, I'll come to the YouTube and Facebook questions. In the meanwhile, you may request Mr. Premachandran, sir, your views on the same two questions, sir.
Regarding the poor net connectivity, that is a big challenge which we are facing. See, I think we have to upgrade our technology. Even now, even in the popular state like Kerala, we do not have the 4G spectrum. That is a problem. The technology, and now not in throughout the Kerala. Even for BSNL, I'm talking about the BS. We are all using the BSNL, so we do not have this 4G connectivity. And the broadband connectivity in remote villages. I will cite very interesting example if you have got the time, because in Kerala we have started this online education. You see how we can upgrade the technology. On 1st June itself, the government of Kerala has decided to start the academic year 2021 by means of online education from standard 1st to 12th standard. And then we have found that 262,000 students do not have the television. We are having a channel, Victor's channels, through which we are having this education. But unfortunately, 262,000 students or houses do not have the television. See, within 1 month, not even 1 month now, we, the libraries, and we, the political parties, youth organizations, student organizations, so many social organizations, started the big campaign in Kerala, and now almost all the people have got this 262,000 people have got this new television connectivity and everything. Even in very backward, downtrodden people are also having the system, because that is television set we can very well. But as far as the net connectivity, rightly Mr. Gujralji has cited, regarding the net connectivity, it's a very, very big problem even in Delhi. Even in the national capital, Delhi, we know the net connectivity problem, especially regarding the BSNL and MTNL. So we have to upgrade the technological system by which this is the lesson we have to learn, because such pandemic may come or things in a different way may come in the future. We should be able to meet such situations. So we have to anticipate such situation, and we should be ready to cope up with any situation which may come in future also. In such a way, we have to frame our rules, we have to make our laws so as to address any situation, for which all the technologies, upgradation of technology is highly required. Thank you.
Sir, are there more questions on YouTube?
Yeah, so what I would request, Mr. Madhavan, you can see the chat box, no? You can ask some of the questions from there which you think is relevant. Then the moment you think is okay, then I will go to a couple of questions on YouTube which I'll come across.
Just
and
take the
Naresh
YouTube
still
questions
online.
first. I'll just come back to this.
Sorry, sir?
The YouTube questions first. I'll just come back to this after that.
Okay. You want me to go ahead with those questions?
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Now, so there is a question. No? Do you think that webinar kind of sessions of legislator will resolve the issues of walkout, boycott, and constant trouble inside the parliament? Can it make the legislator more productive if you go online? This is one question. And is productivity will improve if you use technology and connect online sessions? What you? Yes, Mr. Premachandran. Afterwards, Mr. Naresh Gujar online. He will take this question after you. Please go ahead, Mr. Premachandran.
See, according to me, this virtual parliament or this online conference or online session of the parliament will not be good as that of actual session, no doubt about it, because even the physical emotions of a member of parliament in the parliament itself has its own impact. The way you are presenting the matters, and intervention is the most important factor. When the minister replies, when we are getting a chance to intervene, and so many other things, putting questions, raising issues, and walkouts, and all this. And so, in an online session of the parliament, there are a lot of limitations. Walkout, okay, we can very well say by putting a button or by pressing something, and we will say that we are walking out. And let us, for the time being, we can keep out of the that can be, but the charisma of the parliament, definitely it should be the actual parliament, so that so many things we can fruitfully discuss and debate even in the physical presence.
Mr. Gujral, your views, please.
First of all, I think it will take a long time to upgrade technology and connectivity to accommodate 540 people at the same time participating. So we have to find a solution which is immediate. This is not a long-term thing that we are thinking of. Now, in the immediate situation, obviously, we have to meet in person. And as I said, the only way is to have a large enough area where everybody can be accommodated, which I think is possible. But yes, if one day we have to meet, the parliament has to meet in a virtual kind of session, then all these things will get reduced. But I think we are going through very troubled times, not just because COVID is killing so many people or COVID is striking so many people, but as I said earlier, the huge job losses, the issue of the migrants, the issue of the economy. I mean, the economy is going to shrink the GDP is going to shrink by God knows what percentage. But obviously, all these things are going to have a bearing on our society. Now, at that stage, protest is not the only thing which is in our minds. We want the government to be answerable. We want a healthy debate. And we want answers. Whether it is China, whether it is the economy, whether it is our defense preparedness. So I think to say that whether the virtual parliament will mean less protests or less disruption, I think that is not really the issue today. The issue today is how do we meet, where do we meet, when do we meet, and I know one thing, whenever we meet, it's going to be a very serious parliament. I don't think disruptions and walkouts are going to be the order of the day.
Yeah. Madhavan, maybe one last question from Facebook, then I'll hand it over to you. Is it okay? Yeah. Mr. Naresh, Mr. Gujral, one more question, and then I will request Mr. Premachandran to also answer the same question. Over the years, the number of days that Parliament works has come down drastically. Do you think the webinar session will make it even worse because the frequency will be very, very limited when compared to what's happening presently? Your views on that, sir?
Well, again, I said if the technology can meet up to the challenge, then why should we have meet for less days? Then that is up to really the government of the day to decide. And very frankly, whichever party is in power wants to reduce the number of days, because when you're in session, you're holding the government accountable every day. So that is one reason governments like to have shorter duration sessions. But as I said, it all depends on how quickly can we master technology, how quickly can connectivity can meet up with this challenge. But once this challenge is met, thereafter it will all depend on the government of the day, as has been the situation in the past.
Mr. Premachandran, your views, please.
Yeah. The number of days of functioning of the parliament depends on the political will of the government. According to me, now we are not meeting regularly. It is only bigger sessions we are having. So it is not any suppose it is a webinar, we can have frequent sessions, or if it is actual sessions, we are not able to have frequent session. It is not an excuse for not having the session frequently. It's absolutely the political women fancy of the government, but most of the government, to my experience, most of the governments do not want to have the parliament frequently meeting because they are always answerable. Why should they being getting disturbed by putting questions, putting submissions, and sitting in parliament answering to the questions and making allegations and answering to? So most of the governments in office do not want to have maximum number of days of the parliament in function. So it depends on the political will of the government whether to increase. So during the times of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, I've heard, and even during the time of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, I had the experience. Whenever Vajpayee was in parliament building, he used to come and sit in the house, even though he has no business to reply or respond. He will come and simply sit and watch the parliamentary proceedings, and sometimes he will intervene in the debates and he will make some jokes. And that is the way the parliament is becoming live. That is why I'm saying that it depends on the political will of the government in office.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Madhavan, maybe may I request Mr. Peter or Pankaj, do you have any questions before Madhavan goes to the question? Yes, both. Yes, Mr. Peter, please go ahead.
Well, can you hear me? Yes. So
yes.
I'm surprised by some of the things in the discussions. What I hear is the clear message: Parliament needs to meet urgently. So where there is a will, there is also a way. But it seems that the will is not so strong or not communicated so strong, and that, formalities the president has to call up. I mean, if the majority of Parliament wants, the president will not say, I'm not calling up a session. That's I'm quite sure. Just the last thing, that most of the government doesn't want to be controlled. I formulated a little bit different, or doesn't want to have regularly or more parliament sessions. Is that up to the government to decide how the parliament functions, or isn't it really the right of the parliament to decide when they want to meet and how they want to meet and where they want to meet? What's the government's function? It's the other way around. I think the government has to be controlled by parliament and not the other way around. So my question is, and those technical possibilities are likely there. What we do now, we meet, okay, it's not an Indian IT service industry product, it's what, Zoom, so I think that's an American one, or WebEx, or Microsoft Teams, whatever is there, things are available. And it's also there, it's not always 500 people speaking at the same time in reality. So that can be organized, I think. So many of those points to me appear a little bit, should I say, artificial. Coming back to it, if Parliament wants to meet, they should do it and arrange it, and by will of the Parliament, not asking the executive. So my question to all parliamentarians, are some of these discussion points not rather formal ones? Can you do something if you really want it?
Mr. Gujarat would like to take on this, please.
Can you just repeat the question? It wasn't clear to me.
So the question, what he said is the will of the parliament people is supreme than the government decision in terms of convening the parliament. Why should the basic questions are that the will of the members of the parliament should go over, the government should consider, if the president and thing decide, we should convene the parliament. Your views, sir?
No, you are saying that is the honorable gentleman suggesting that
honorable members of the parliament should decide when to convene, how to convene, what to go about, rather than
exactly that was the point that my bill was raising. That if by law, Parliament has to meet a specific number of days, and if the House is disrupted, then automatically it gets extended. Then it will be there. The government will have no choice. If let's say I had said 100 days, in which case government could not make it 99. And also, we have seen in the past, whenever it gets inconvenient for any government, the decision is going a certain way, they have the House disrupted. But if there was to be an automatic extension, then this would not happen. Both houses would be more ruling. But of course, as I said, it does not suit any government to be held accountable. Ministers do not want to be put on the mat. So they have the bill defeated. But I wish this kind of act was enforced so that the government of the day will have no choice but to call the session for a specific number of days every year.
Mr. Premachandran, your views, please.
I think partially I have answered to his question because, see, who has to decide, whether the parliament or the government? I think that is a particular question. Yes, in a parliamentary system of democracy, it is the government. That is because the principle of majority, the rule of majority. Because the government is having absolute majority in the House, definitely whatever the decisions of the government, most of the times it will be carried by the parliament. So that is why the parliament's the number of days of parliament. Suppose if you want to make a legislation on the minimum number, as rightly Mr. Gujarat ji has said, that we have to have minimum number of working days, at least 120 days in a year. Suppose if you want to make a legislation, it is a will, it is a political will of the government. Suppose the Council of Ministers decide and draft a bill in such a way, definitely the government will agree, they will be having the majority, the House will pass it. So whether the parliament to decide or the government to decide is absolutely, it is the decision of the parliament. But most of the time, the parliament means it is being based on the principle or the rule of majority. Rule of majority in the sense that those who are having the majority, they will be governing the country or the government, and government is having a role in deciding the number of days to be convened. Or if you want to enhance, it's absolutely the minimum number of days, it is there, but that gap, everything that they will comply with. But if you want to enhance, depends on the government, though it is the decision of the parliament.
Over to you, Mr. Madhavan. Please go ahead.
Mr. Pankaj wanted to say something?
No, it's fine.
Okay. So since it's already 7:25,
maybe another 10 minutes you can take the question and close it. 7:30.
Or I thought I'll give like 3 minutes to each of the people, to make concluding remarks.
Good idea.
Close, so that we. So, shall I ask Professor Ramesh to make his concluding remarks, and then I'll go to the two members of parliament, and then we'll close.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think quite a lot of interesting thing came. In fact, if we reach some consensus from this talk, we can say that the committee can start meeting virtually also. Okay. And like taking the point from Mr. Premchandran and Mr. Gujral, what I can say is that if the members come up with some idea of how it can be done, parliament or committee, I'm sure there'll be a consensus on that. I'm sure this is something they will have a consensus on how it can be done once the government comes up with a proposal. And so I think that should not be an issue if they really come up with that. But there is some lot of risk, sir. I mean, even if it is a large area, like you were saying, there are going to be a lot of security, there's going to be a lot of staff, there's going to be a lot of people supporting it. The problem here is that even if one security guy gets affected, then they quarantine some 50 people. Okay, so this disease being what it is a challenge, but that's a call that the parliamentarians have to take it up. Finally, I have a suggestion for you, Madhavan, also. Like you read out all the parliaments which have functioned with this. So you can look at what has been their experience for last 1 month. I mean, what is the outcome? Did any of them fall sick, or was there any, or the support staff, and what additional risk that it entailed to the parliamentarians and the support systems? That will be a very interesting take also for the government. And I think, I mean, one can come up with suggestions. I mean, you can even invite a lot of suggestions will come on how the parliament can meet. Yeah, one more important point I would like to make is that I think technology is resolvable. I mean, even the connectivity Mr. Prem Chandran was saying, yes, I mean, if you try, but suppose if you go to the collector office, there's NIC connection everywhere, and there's a dedicated connection. So hopefully, and they can give you a backup also. So all those things can be done. I mean, a lot of things. See, after all, we are running the banking systems. Okay. We are running the capital market. We are running several mission critical systems in India. This is also a mission critical system, and maybe we should assume we can find some solution, but the parliamentarian should come to take the call. Yeah, that's my observation. Yeah.
Mr. Premachandran?
Yeah, I fully agree with Mr. Professor Ramesh because technologically we can have this conference. But the only problem which I would like to make is whether the constitution or the rules of business is permitting it. Yes, if there is a will, there is a way, no doubt about it. Because that is why I'm saying that the president, in consultation with the speaker and the vice president or the chairman of Rajya Sabha, can have make some formula so as to have this webinar session of both houses of the parliament. The main problem is in having actual parliament session. Yes, it's a risky factor, no doubt. Even somebody has putting the question, even if it is we having the logistics, everything, all the facilities are there, and even if I'm able to come from Trivandrum to Delhi and can attend the parliament session, but the risk factor is the pandemic situation. And that is the matter which is worsening, and even most of the institutions are closed. And suppose if anything happens to anyone, definitely the parliament has to be closed. In such a situation, again, we have to go for a webinar session. So definitely, at least during this period, suppose, I hope that it will continue for 6 months more until a vaccination is experimented or found out. It will continue, or we have to live with the novel coronavirus for at least for 3, 4, 6 months. So during that time, we will try to have such a webinar also, because the technology, as rightly as pointed out, that we can sit in the collectorate and we can have a better net experience by which we can interact and can have a virtual session of the parliament as an experimental basis. We can have it, and we will see how far it will be functioning in an effective and proper way. And anyway, we have to think on it. But one point I would like to make it very strongly: without having the parliament session, without having the functioning of the parliamentary standing committees and the legislative committees, going like this will never do any good to the country, because we are strongly believing in a parliamentary system of democracy. The government has to be made accountable to the people of the country. Suppose the government goes like this way, the government will be getting arbitrary powers, and automatically they will be becoming that everything, because more powers, or we know that absolute power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolute. Like that way, unfettered authority to the government is a danger to the democratic system. Definitely something should be found out. As rightly he has pointed out, if there is a way, if there is a will, definitely there is a way. We have to find out such a solution. The only solution for the time being is the technological solution by which we can have a meeting. Either first standing committees, then the parliament if it is required. That is the suggestion which I would like to make. Anyway, I would take this opportunity to appreciate the organizers, especially the Madras Management Association and other co-sponsors, in having a discussion on a vital issue which the country is facing, and also Mr. Sri Madhavanji for making this issue in the public domain, to have the role of the parliament. Now so many online news and print media and electronic media are all calling us, what is your observation and what is your opinion regarding having the parliament or the standing committee to meet on virtual way. So it has become a live discussion because of your article and this type of discussion, for which we are all grateful to you. With these words, I conclude my observations. Thank you very much for having this wonderful meeting.
Mr. Naresh Gujral, your closing comments, please. Over to Mr. Naresh Gujral.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank all of you for organizing this seminar, because I think it's extremely important that we discuss and debate this issue. And I do hope that whatever solution has to be found is found immediately. And to my mind, as I said earlier, this kind of a situation could never have been envisaged by our founding fathers or by the fathers of the Constitution. Today, when we are in this period, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, the Chairman of the Rajya Sabha, the Prime Minister, these three can meet and decide how do we take it forward. And I would even say that they can even consult the Chief Justice of India, so that whatever decision is taken is not challenged tomorrow in courts. But Parliament must meet, government has to be held accountable, all these ordinances which are coming have to be debated. And as I said, this kind of a crisis the nation is facing for the first time after independence, where on the one hand, we have the economy which is collapsing, and on the other hand, we have this huge threat from China. So how do we ensure that Parliament can meet, whether whether the technology can meet up to this challenge? I do not know, but I'm sure they can find a way. As I already have said, that the banking system is working, the stock exchanges are working. So I'm sure a way out can be found. And of course, to my mind, the best way would be if we can meet in person in a large enough area with very little support staff, so that the chances of acquiring infection are reduced. But of course, some risk has to be taken if we want democracy to thrive.
Over to you, Mr. Madhavan.
Thank you, sir. So just before I hand over, I just wanted to, I really enjoyed the discussion, and what I take away from this, from all the speakers, is the message that firstly, standing committees should meet and they can do it using video conferencing. Parliament should meet, but how to do that has to be figured out, but it's very important that that is figured out as soon as possible, and that should meet. That's what I was hearing. I'll just, for the larger audience here, because I know there is an audience here which is not very familiar with parliamentary processes, I just wanted to point out that our parliament is actually quite technologically enabled. A lot of things like putting in questions for the question hour, submitting notices, much of it is already online well before this pandemic. So it should not be too difficult for parliamentarians to manage the technology if it's made available. So I thank everyone, and I'll hand it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Madhavan. Thank you, Mr. Naresh Gujral. At the end of the day, we had a net problem, but we brought you on audio. There's a solution for every situation. What it happens, I'm quite sure. I'm quite sure. Thanks, Mr. Premachandran. Thank you so much, sir. You have been online for the last 1.5 hours. It clearly shows how sincere our members of parliament joined on such a serious issue which we have discussed this evening. Thanks, Mr. Premachandran. It's always a pleasure to have you with us on board, and we'll always look up to you whenever we have some serious issue. We're going to keep request you to come and speak. And Mr. Ramesh, thanks so much for joining, and your insights are really very valuable to us from the academic portion of it. And Madhavan, as usual, your article will kindle the thought process of us to make this event. And you can see the number of questions which have come from your chat box as well as on my YouTube and Facebook. It clearly indicated that we have very serious issue on hand which need to be resolved, and more than a couple of thousand people have watched this program live on YouTube, Facebook, webinar. And thank you so much for all the members and viewers who are watching the program live. And it clearly indicated you are the adrenaline which pumps us to bring you some high quality program of this nature, which is very, very relevant. As I mentioned to you, just to remind you again, we would look forward to see you joining on the 26th again on the discussion on another serious subject of the Galwan incident. What is the policy? What is the national issue? What is the China's mind? We have got some 4 outstanding speakers, including the former Chief of Naval Staff and the former DG of Intelligence, and also we have former High Commissioner to the Pakistan, and also an academician. 4 names, and if you look at the invitation for the detailed names, I'm not repeating. Thank you so much, and thank you, Mr. Peter, for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you with us, and thanks to the Pankaj and team from CAS, and Priya, thanks to Mr. Satyamurthy and also Prime Minister Srinivasan for joining us. Thanks, and bye-bye. Stay safe and stay healthy, and keep things, and people, especially in Chennai, please stay safe because it's a serious issue in Chennai. Obey the rules and watch out for the rules and obey them. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thank you, Mr. Gujral. Good night. Stay safe. Pleasure having you with us. Good night to you, sir. Bye-bye.
Can we have a discussion? Trilateral?
Yes.
Yes,
thank
we
you,
can.
sir. Thank you, Mr.
What's the American answer once?
Yes, Mr. Remle, me and you.
Can you go on audio call?
So can I switch off?
We can do that.